No. So today is Thursday, 12 January. We are beginning review of selected concepts for our first module in digital forensics. And what you see in front of you is the module 1 cover page. And in particular, we'll be talking about the Secret Service in just a moment. This is, whoa, I don't know what happened there. So I'm working with a new system and a touchpad, and occasionally it has a mind of its own. Or it's user error. All right, I fess up. Anyway, we recently had a visit by President Biden to the territory, and the Secret Service were actually engaged in our neighborhood. So this is kind of a cool thing. I did want to call your attention to the updated listing of activities. So we dropped one of our previous assignments, and essentially what you'll see inside the module when you open the header page by clicking the link, I'll be posting the assignments here. The most important thing to understand is the progression. We have something due by the end of this week. I'm going to change the convention that was practiced previously. If you see due Saturday and it only mentions the day and date instead of a time, then you have until 11:59 p.m. on that day to complete the work. And when we mention a specific time, there's a reason. Some of the deadlines we were flexible with last season, we are no longer flexible with this season. We can't get as far or do as much if we extend deadlines in the early part of the semester. And that's just one element of constructive criticism that students offered in our last semester. So in order to make sure that we keep moving along and we don't get so jammed up toward the end of the semester, we have to tighten up in the front side of the semester. I hope you understand. That doesn't mean we're inflexible, but we'll be reviewing the assessment items in an item analysis on Tuesday, 24 January, which is 12 days from today. So it'll be important for you to review everything in the study guide well. The reconciliation will be due by Saturday that same week, and then before the month closes out, your opportunity to retake the assessment will end Tuesday morning a week later. Okay, so it's really important for everyone to understand we're moving in a different rhythm this semester. I also want to call your attention to the fact that there is a study guide addendum that adds additional information, in particular, some of the detail in chapter 2. And it's critically important for you to review the study guide as well as the study guide addendum. Are there any questions before we start with our first student learning objective?
No questions.
No question.
Okay. Well, right before the first student learning objective, you'll notice in the study guide, there's a detail that's called out with the word important. You'll see that in some modules quite frequently, but essentially the best forensic tool is the one between your ears. Your own power of observation is basically the best digital forensic tool. And there is a tendency in this discipline within the cybersecurity profession to depend too much. There's an over-dependence on fancy tools, gadgets, security appliances, intrusion detection systems, tech stuff, software and hardware, right? And the problem is that's not where the rubber meets the road. If you're going to be effective in digital forensics, it is your own attention to detail. It is your own consistent method And why do I tell you this? Well, I'm not the only one who practices the value of the professional themselves. In the Secret Service, they take a tremendous amount of time when you are first learning how to function as an agent of the Secret Service for the United States of America. Your counterfeit training is conducted in a certain manner. And it's actually more straightforward and more basic than you may think. Okay. So we're going to take a look at that here real quickly. The US Secret Service agents in training, they invest very little time. Now, the study guide says no time whatsoever, and I may change that to very little time to study what is counterfeit or bogus. They focus solely on the authentic and legitimate bill. So what are we saying? They spend time, considerable time, weeks of time, meticulously studying every denomination and all of the security features on the real McCoy, the authentic and legitimate. Because counterfeiters, people who impersonate legitimate bills with their own fake bills, and that's really what we're talking about, impersonation. In the intro to cyber course, it was something that we said, there was actually an activity where we asked you to look at an exploit that played out, and it was a high profile exploit. It involved a sister campus, the University of South Carolina State University was compromised, right? So there was a real problem there, and their systems had been exploited with malicious actors. And the sole focus, or I want to say the pivot point of that whole exploit is all about impersonation. You see this as a repeating interest over and over and over again. So in systems security, in CSC 353, we hammer the idea that there are two principles or focus areas to begin with when you're attempting to secure a system effectively and a collection of systems. So it's no longer about an individual system. It's about the collective, right? Everything's connected. You have devices, you have servers, you have a range of interests, hardware and users on that network. The thing to remember is that there's a lot of moving parts, and it's easy to get lost in the weeds. And the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. What works in a time-honored fashion for the Secret Service works for us. So one of the things that we want you to understand is that in like fashion, forensic experts must become highly knowledgeable about normal, healthy, uncorrupted, or unexploited states for data, devices, and systems. Are there any comments about this? Have any of you noticed there was a news article or some kind of notification out during the Christmas festival here on St. Croix? Somebody was passing counterfeit bills. Did
Yeah, I saw that.
anyone see that in the news?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, isn't that like interesting timing?
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
was during Village. Yeah.
right. And so in order to prevent people from being exploited, because that's what happens, right? You give somebody your real money, your authentic money, and then if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden you have a bogus bill. Well, what's the average person going to do? If they're smart, they turn it in. If they're confused, and I'm going to use that word, if that exploitation leaves a victim feeling confused, it is not so uncommon that a confused victim would do what with that fake bill? Do they want to get stuck with a bill that's no good and they're out money?
Nope.
What's the instinct?
To either get rid of it or give it to somebody else.
Get rid of it or pass it along, right? It's really important to walk up to the VIPD and the US Secret Service and hand them that bill. But that's not the average instinct of the average person. What do you think happens when a system a user is working with becomes compromised with in an embarrassing manner? Do you think the average person who suddenly discovers their system has been compromised and the nature of the compromise is embarrassing? Let's say it's a tad personal. Let's say they woulda, coulda, shoulda not been doing some personal junk on a business system. Do you think in like manner, the average victim of a digital forensic exploit, right? An event, an incident, do you think they have a natural tendency to raise a flag, call it out, and say, oh, we got cleanup on aisle 6. Let's get our forensic expert in here. Help me get to the bottom of this. What do you think the average user in that case is going to do?
Not do that and find some other way.
Find some other way to pass over that problem like a speed bump in the parking lot. Oh, look at the time. I think I have to go to lunch early today. What does that have to do with this topic? Well, I'm telling you right here and right now, and this is not in your textbook, not stated in this manner. This is a value added concept from somebody with 25 years of experience in the field. You alone, the forensic professional, well, and then on the front side, our first responders are called incident handlers. You'll notice that there's a separate category of forensic expertise that's actually a specialty in its own right. And without professional qualifications for incident handlers, there is a certification for incident handling in cybersecurity. First responders to incidents have to know what they're doing, and they become experts at the initial encounter, right? So when you're interacting as a forensic expert, let's say you're not the incident handler. Let's say that you're not the technology help desk that people call. So folks have something weird on their system. It's kind of weird. They call a help desk, and that's an average technical person, not a cybersecurity person. If you're in a quality organization, you will soon learn that quality organizations invest in their help desk staff to train them properly as incident handlers, first responders on the front line of forensics, digital forensics. That's what we're talking about. Those forensic experts have to know about what is a normal, healthy, uncorrupted, or unexploited state of the data, device, or system. This is often referred to as a baseline. Okay, it is the default state of a healthy system. What am I saying? In routine checks on systems, it may not be the incident handler who is tagged in because a victim is properly motivated to raise their hand and say, hey, I got a problem. Hey, I need help. That's not the common behavior. Instead, our help desk folks need to constantly look at the logs, the system reports. They have to see which machines are not updated, which ones are doing something very naughty in terms of upstream traffic. Did we or did we not call out something about upstream traffic in our last class? Was that in system security?
No, that was this class.
That was this class, right? So if you're not running applications, if you're not doing what I'm doing right now, meaning I'm streaming out with Zoom and I'm recording, So as I'm streaming the views of our session here and I'm moving my mouse, that's generating more data. The more motion, the more richness of the media content that's outbound, the higher and higher the bandwidth will climb. So this isn't a bad or heavy output, but if I'm using AC wireless, AC Wi-Fi, what's the throughput for AC? Right? This is showing megahertz, right? But how many gigs a second can you pass with AC Wi-Fi? Anybody know? Not off the top of your head, right? And does everybody see what kind of connection type this is?
802.11n.
This is N. It's not even AC, right?
AC is 7 gigs.
Right. Quite a bit of data. Yeah. So instead of kilobits per second, if you see tens or hundreds or gigabits per second, right? Gigabits per second, you know something is wrong. And so you have to know what's normal, not just for the data, device, or system. We could actually expand on this list and say the unexploited state of the data, device, system, network, server, right? If you understand what I'm saying. It's good to have baselines for everything. And it's important to match a baseline state as closely as possible to a device or system of study. So this is the kind of thing we have yet to accomplish. Now, there are people in industry that would argue with you and they'd say, oh no, we have a security appliance and it measures baseline activity for, and then it's kind of like tripwire, and that's actually a product called tripwire. So when the integrity of a data file is changed, tripwire will alert a system administrator or IT staff or cybersecurity expert, depending on the local environment and how it's configured. And tripwire will say, oh, hey, we got a lot of upstream traffic over here. So that's, or we have a critical system file on this server that has been modified unexpectedly, right? So the industry would be quick to challenge my statement. But I stand by my resolve here, and that's a little bit redundant. I stand by my comments that you can have all the best tools and systems and products to keep you safe, but if you have morons on the screen running them, you wasted your money. That bears repeating. I don't give a darn what the subject matter experts in industry are trying to peddle for a sale next month at the Black Hat conference or whichever conference, right? Take your pick. There's always a conference and there's always somebody that's going to make your life easy. They're going to promise you stuff. Don't you think for 1 minute that digital forensics gets any better with an easy button. If you don't have your own sensibilities, if you don't have your own capacity in a constant state of refinement and improvement, because the adversary is always doing that. The adversary is always figuring out how to work around stuff constantly, right? Does anyone know what happened in the news with FAA? Anyone?
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay.
Same here.
Okay, so in the news, FAA. Let's go to Google for this. So FAA, flight delays. FAA grounds all flights.
Oh, that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
I saw that.
What kind of outage?
System outage,
And what was going on? A computer system what?
glitch.
Glitch. Glitch. Causes what? All
All
flights
flights
across the
to be
US.
grounded.
all flights across the US. Holy crap. Right? I mean, look at some of those graphics. Everybody's stranded, right? The point I'm trying to make is if they want safety for 4,000 flights and they have a system that controls the flow of flights and where the planes go and how they, you know, it basically coordinates the takeoff and landing, right? If anybody here is a pilot in the making, we have some students in previous computer science courses, and it was a hobby for, they were part of the, like the aviation club. Did you know that university has an aviation club?
I
Currently,
did not.
Yeah, there's an aviation club over on St. Thomas. And
I
they
could
have
see
some,
that one.
yeah, there's a JetBlue pilot that is basically one of the supporting principals for that club. But basically, most pilots can tell you that it's the takeoff and landing phases of a flight that tend to be the most precarious, right? So that said, FAA is going to do things to err on the side of caution. They don't want a glitch killing people, right? So that's just one of the things that are, you know, happening all the time. Unless somebody in the FAA is watching the system for differences, they wouldn't even pick up on a glitch necessarily, right? The problem is that systems change as soon as they're updated and upgrades occur. So this is the challenge. You can't ever rest on your laurels. You have constantly evolving baselines. You have to update and upgrade in order to close off or remove known exposures. That's a given. So I don't know if any of you remember the stuff we went through in Intro to Cyber, where it was like optimizing your personal technology, you want to update and upgrade and right, all that. Anybody remember this?
yeah,
Yeah. And then if you had to do it or redo it, resubmit it later in the season, were you using the same kernel even anymore? Like I think we started the fall season with 21H2, and by the time we ended the fall semester, it was 22H2 or something like that.
Yep, 22H.
Yeah. So the baseline changes, right? When the baseline changes, that means the processors, the variety of things that happen here. If you go to the running background processes, the mix of things may change as the very kernel or system internals of an operating system are updated. And whenever you have a new version release, like a feature update, that typically involves an entire kernel replacement, right? So it's a whole new operating system. Most people run updates and they don't even think, well, I'm getting a whole new operating system, but you are, okay? So the baseline changes. And that's an aspect of staying on top of baselines, right? Now, how does that get back to the US Secret Service? Adversaries who are passing counterfeit get better and better at passing bills. So unless they focus on the constant, the part of their scenery that's changing is what the adversary is doing to move the fake bill closer and closer to the real bill. And so what's happening over time is that in concert with the Bureau of Printing and Engraving, I don't know if you've heard of this, the Treasury and the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. I don't know if it's printing, I think it's just Bureau of Engraving. I forget. In any case, there is a separate federal agency associated with the production of coin and the production of bills, denominations, right? They go back to the drawing board and they say, hey, guess what? The new laser printers are so good that some of these color variations, well, they're coming up with some interesting stuff. They use a little bit of 3D printer to trace an outline of multicolor material, and Wow. Oh, and they figured out how to use $1 bills and strip all the stuff out of the $1 bills, and now they have a blank paper that's the same, because I don't know if you know this, the paper is actually parchment with cloth in it. There is cloth fiber in our bills. Yeah,
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 that's why you could like wash it and put it in the dryer and stuff.
yeah. If you blanket, and then I don't know if you, there's a lot of, this has been in a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows, right? So they take $1 bills, they blank them out, then they reprint them, and they look pretty close to the real thing. I'm not suggesting that we go any further in this discussion about how best to counterfeit US denominations, because I don't want to visit from the Secret Service, I'll be honest with you. But the one thing to understand is that their world is constantly changing because the technology is constantly changing. The methods are constantly changing. And that is certainly true in our discipline. That's what we're going to say. That's all we're going to say right now about our first student learning objective. Are there any questions about student learning objective A before we continue?
No question.
Okay. Moving right along. Now, at some point, I'm going to stop and call out some things in the slides, and we're going to blitz through the publisher slides to pick up on key points in the publisher slides. And but let's see if we can get through student learning objective C before we jump out to slides, right? So I have some slides ready, and there are some interesting details in here. So please remember to read in your textbook. I think it's chapters 1 and 2, and then at a very minimum, make sure that you memorize the study guide. So definitions, tasks, and components of digital forensics. The definition of digital forensics has evolved over the years. So in not too many years, it used to be that digital forensics meant something different than computer forensics, network forensics, malware analysis, all of that. And what's happened in recent years is that the industry has fused all of these different specialties into the broader umbrella of digital forensics. So digital forensics used to have to do with a specific type of forensics. Generically, it usually meant computer forensics, but then along came malware analysis and network forensics and so on. And after a time, it got to be very confusing. So here, the official definition from 2007 is worth noting. So he says, it's evolved over the years from simply involving securing and analyzing digital information stored on a computer, right? The former director of the Defense Computer Forensics Laboratory, Ken Zitaiko, wrote a treatise. That means he wrote like a US Constitution and Declaration, right? He wrote a volume on this, on the many specialties, including computer network video and a host of others. I mean, you've seen this in TV and movies, haven't you? You get a specialist in an office and they're like, oh, this security surveillance footage is really fuzzy. Can you help with this? Right? So they have some special algorithm that enhances the contrast and the detail in fuzzy video. It's the application. So Zitaiko, what we're looking for is something that's a little more timeless as far as a definition. So it's the application of computer science and investigative procedures for a legal purpose involving the analysis of digital evidence, information of probative value that is stored or transmitted in binary form. Notice the distinction. We're not just talking about data at rest, we're talking about data in motion. After proper search authority, chain of custody, validation with mathematics, hash functions, use of validated tools, repeatability, reporting, and possible expert presentation. Wow, is that a mouthful? But it's worth noting that is for 2007, that's a pretty enlightened and comprehensive definition. And as I just stated, the industry has caught up and it's pretty much adopted this, right? Now, I want you to notice that this definition is centered on legal concerns. And one of the things I want you to appreciate is that the best way to use digital forensics, I'm going to get very dramatic here. The best use of digital forensics is not in response to legal concerns, but to preemptively eliminate them. Digital forensics is best used in-house as a matter of personnel management, so you keep the sheep in line. We are shepherds, digital shepherds. And it's much better to pick up on something and to deal with it before it becomes a legal problem, a matter of criminal matter, right? So that's the only shortcoming of this definition. And what I want you to understand is that digital forensics was kind of birthed and incubated in a criminal justice kind of context, right? So it was closely aligned with criminal justice, and that's why our first cybersecurity concentration program that was approved at the University of the Virgin Islands was all about forensics, all right? What I want you to come away with today is an expanded understanding that we're not talking about legal concerns. Oh yeah, that's where it shines, and traditionally that's where it was used the most. That's its origin. But if we're smart and we're enlightened as organizations, as professionals, we ply our trade in support of our clients so that they never see the courtroom. The crime is prevented in the first place, right? We pick up on things that are evolving and have a chance to deal with them before they spin off the rails, right? Has anyone heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure?
Can't say I have heard that.
It is a misconception and a common misconception to think that digital forensics has value only once bad things happen and you're dealing with legal matters. It's quite the opposite. If it's used sparingly up front with incident handlers and help desk, it helps technology professionals identify evolving problems so they can preemptively manage them before they get out of control. I would argue that the definition of digital forensics needs to be updated to include this because, in my professional opinion, after 25 years, I can't tell you how many times I had a post-mortem situation and I used digital forensic skills to get somebody in trouble and to seek justice and to impose to empower corrective measures by managers who had bad employees. And so the connotation, the association that most people have with digital forensics, it's like, oh, they either think that, oh, they need to be friends with the person who does the digital forensics for their organization. It's like, I'm going to become best buddies with that guy because I sure don't want them. I mean, if I ever find that they're in my neighborhood sniffing around, I want them to be a friendly and not a foe, right? So that's one aspect of it. The other piece of this is the digital forensics expert becomes somebody that nobody wants to touch with a 10-foot pole. It's like, oh, you never want to see that guy in your neighborhood, right? The truth is there's a different way to frame the value of digital forensics, and the industry is sitting up and taking notice. But I do want you to understand that because of its origins, this function of its traditional role is actually the most important. Now, when you see Hollywood and news media, when you see the popular presentations of digital forensics in movies and TV shows, you always see this piece of it where they're using their digital forensic skills, and it's like, okay, we're going to find out how to get this evil person, and we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to save the day because we're going to bag them and tag them, right? The simple truth is, more often than not, a suspicion where a user is concerned is not properly founded. In other words, if you look harder and closer at the digital evidence, you exonerate the user, and what you produce with your digital forensic investigation is what's called exculpatory evidence. Repite usted, por favor. Everyone, exculpatory.
Exculpatory.
Did you know that a common tactic of most malicious actors is to frame someone else so they don't get in trouble? Were you aware of this dynamic? I need a verbal response from everybody on this session. Did you know that one of the most instinctive things for a bad person to do is to go about their ill stuff in a manner where it's not pinned on them, some other dupe, some other hapless victim is blamed for their stuff, right? Everybody understands that intuitively, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard from two of you, the other two. Okay. I thought I heard from two. I thought we had four. No, all right. Everybody said yes, yeah? Maybe we should use other forms of cues. When I tell you I need a thumbs up, don't we have in Zoom, we have these great features to
Reactions, yeah.
reactions. We might ask you to thumbs up or gesture, right? I just want to make sure everybody heard that. That's not the part of digital forensics that's glorious or sexy. It's like, but believe it or not, you become the hero to the people you serve. If you get to the bottom of it and you find out, oh, it wasn't it wasn't the bookkeeper. It wasn't the bookkeeper. It was somebody in Jamaica who got on the bookkeeper's system. Well, then the question becomes, how do they get on the bookkeeper's system, right? And it's complex. So what happens is that you get to the truth. The truth will set you free. You have a chance to exonerate individuals as much as incriminate them. Don't ever forget that the purpose of this discipline is to get the facts so that people can make an objective decision about the facts. It is very easy, because of the malicious nature of bad actors, to sway your opinion. They're going to smear a person. They're going to discredit a person. They're going to leave breadcrumbs that make somebody look like Genghis Khan. And it's your job not to assume, based on first impressions, that, okay, you're going to roll up your sleeves and you're going to get digital forensic evidence to put them away. That's really important to understand, okay? This is combat. And if you don't understand your role, somebody bad is going to use your skills against the people you're supposed to serve, and you will not get very far in digital forensics. And the adversary will laugh all the way. They'll turn you into the poster child for how to screw up a forensic. Look, they jailed the wrong person. Yeah. It won't be long before they discredit you. Does everybody hear what I'm saying? So here you have a see this website kind of moment, right? And I just want to make sure that this website still works. Any questions so far?
No questions.
Okay. You can accept all cookies from this website. This is an interesting website, the Open University. And when I was talking about different types of digital forensics, one of the things that became a very hot specialty for a short period of time were specialists in digital forensics who could capture the data that was live in RAM on a running system. Now that's like the holy grail or Mount Everest of digital forensic tasks. Network forensics involves very ephemeral, quick. What does ephemeral mean? Didn't we talk about ephemeral? I thought, was that in this class? Ephemeral? Short-lived? Maybe not. Okay.
No, I
All
don't
right.
think it was in this class.
Network forensics. Yeah, it might have been system security. Okay. Ephemeral. Network forensics. It happens very fast. It's always temporary. As soon as somebody moves to the next network and they connect to the next Wi-Fi network, that data, that stream of data that's malicious, it's all gone, right? So things can appear and disappear instantly in network forensics. It's even more volatile. Data is even more volatile and fragile when it's in RAM, right? So this is like, there's a program called Autopsy, and it's a suite of forensic tools. But basically, if you want to earn the deepest respect among digital forensic specialists, you want to get into the tools and get up to speed on how to capture the contents of live data of live RAM while it's running on a computer. The trick is when you start running those tools, it's the RAM that's actually, you can actually change the RAM depending on how you implement the tools. What am I saying? It's like taking a picture with flash photography, and the moment the flash is in the photo, the light screws up the image, right? So the tools have to be very carefully applied so as not to corrupt the contents of the live machine. Quite often there is something running in the system tray initially. What am I saying? The capacity to memorize, to analyze RAM content is usually, has historically been predicated by the installation of a client that runs in memory all the time, something like Encase. So a forensic tool suite is often purchased by an organization or a company, and it's installed on all computers, and it's running all the time. And so from across a network, a digital forensic specialist can click a button, and on that remote system, there's a snapshot of the contents of RAM that's captured because the tool to do that is already loaded and running on the remote system. It's kind of like having an antivirus program in the background, lurking in the background to watch or trap for issues, right? Well, this program running in the background is always queuing up images of the active RAM. So if a digital forensic specialist says, hey, I need to see what's going on in RAM on this system, right? That, again, that is among the most skillful of procedures that have to be performed in modern terms, especially with mobile devices, right? It gets to be extremely difficult with mobile devices, but the tools are always evolving. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. Any questions about different types of digital forensics as a part of the definition, specific aspects of, and so on? So one of the things that really causes a problem for us is that, have we talked about bring your own device? BYOD?
Is that when companies tell their client or their employees to bring their own device to work on?
Yes. So a popular thing in industry, a lot of companies and organizations are really sick of the cost and support they have to maintain in-house. So one of the trends in industry is that a lot of corporations and organizations, they're starting to adopt this method of reducing costs. It's called bring your own device. When you bring your own device, it means that the company is sponsoring or advocating or supporting the use of personal devices with the understanding that the data that's produced for those personal devices belongs to the organization. And that gets sticky, especially in digital forensics. That is a special problem in digital forensics, okay? And that's especially true where you have a mobile workforce, where they're using their own smartphones, their own laptops or tablets, right? And this becomes a challenge because it's like, okay, yeah, so see if this is compatible, right? Let's pretend I have a new laptop, okay? Are you ready? I have a new laptop. Let's just pretend. And I do. I am the proud owner of an Asus gaming laptop. And it has 64 gigs of RAM. I'm not bragging, but it's the most fun I've had on screen in a while. And here's the cores, right? So Santa Claus was very good to me. I now have 16 logical processors on my laptop. So I don't know if you remember previous classes where things were kind of slow and they didn't move along very fast, right? You get my point. And let's pretend that the University of the Virgin Islands decided, hey, we're not going to provide desktops for the office anymore. Oh, but we need to load this thing in the system tray of your device so that if something starts to happen on our network, we can manage and secure our network. So we're going to be monitoring the activity on your personal computer. Do you think those interests are compatible? What is your opinion of that?
It's not.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Would you like it if we had a class and I said, hey, for our digital forensics class, I want you to feel the pain of what it's like to have somebody digging in your Kool-Aid when they're not doing what they're supposed to do? Oh, experience is the best teacher. In order for you to pass this class, you have to load my software on your personal laptop. Let's make it real. Would you be willing to do that to get an A in my course?
No, not really.
Why
I don't think
not?
so, no.
Well, what if I promised you that I wasn't going to pay attention to your personal habits on your laptop? Would you believe me? I'm just asking a question. Any other
That's just
opinions?
bad practice.
How many of you think I would still be employed at UVI in a year or less? I don't think I'd be employed very long, to be honest, right? I just want you to understand some of the dynamics that are playing out in the workplace right now. Yeah. I mean, companies don't want to invest. Let's use an easy button. Wow. And so how do you come along after something really bad happens and they're going to try to hire your services? Oh, but here's the catch. It's their personal laptop. Should an organization have employees sign a waiver allowing a digital forensic specialist to, to, to inspect their personal device on demand? What do you think? Is that something you think an organization could defend?
No, not really.
Not really. We have to win over tech staff and financial and administrative leadership in organizations and in government agencies before they let this go any further. You'd be shocked at the number of corporations and organizations that are doing this junk, and it's crap. It's ill-advised. It is the most misguided. Somebody is lying to the financial and administrative people, whispering in their ears about how cool it is and how much money you can save and how big your bonus is going to be as an executive for a corporation. And it's probably the hackers themselves that have figured out how to misinform people on Facebook and online with all sorts of glossy ad campaigns about how much money they've saved and what heroes they're creating with these new methods of rolling out the freedom. And on the same side of it, they're also taking all of the worker bees, all of the employees, and there's all this social media campaign, like a misinformation campaign, right? Brainwashing, the same kind of thing that, actually was performed as a for-profit corporation. I'm talking about Cambridge Analytica. They had a misinformation campaign that misinformed most Britons to the point where they ran screaming from the European Union. It was called Brexit, and they left the European Union. This misinformation campaign was illegal, it was unlawful, it was misguided, and it was a point of manipulation. It was funded by adversaries of the European Union. They have jailed people since then. And this happened just a few years ago. It also played out in one of our elections in the US mainland. So what am I saying? Organized crime and nation states have a vested interest in convincing mind control that this is a cool idea, right? And it's not past them to put out stuff in Facebook and TikTok. How cool it is. TikTok. TikTok. Did you know that your data, TikTok, can you investigate with digital forensics what happens to TikTok data, especially after hours when it's personal and private? Okay, so I'm preaching a little bit again. I hope this recorded session is played over and over and over again because the US government is freaking out. They're trying to tell everybody, and the people who know, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, it doesn't matter. This isn't a matter of partisan politics. The people who know are trying to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. We need to tell people they don't need to have TikTok loaded on their personal devices. Why? Well, because they use their personal devices to engage what? Corporate systems. Access what? Organizational data. Do you understand what I'm getting at here?
Mm-hmm.
We're in uncharted territory, gentlemen. And what I'm trying to get to you through to you today is that there is no time in the history of our country where this discipline, this profession, was less important. This is your season. In this semester, we need to learn these skills, but more importantly, we need to advocate. You need to become evangelists for this professional skill set. And you need to convince people when you need to get online, when you hear people doing and saying things, you need to be salt and light. You need to let people know, maybe it's, I don't know if it's such a good idea for everybody that is using their devices in the workplace and they're also running TikTok and, it isn't owned by a Chinese company. No, see, they made all that right. They're convincing or misleading clients in like fashion. So connected devices in the workplace, this is huge, right? So then you get into network forensics and network security, and the water gets deep and cold pretty fast. Now, I'm a fan of TikTok. I'm a recent convert of TikTok. I've been capturing and downloading videos for cool skills that are demonstrated in TikTok that I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know you could do that, right? Fix a commode that much faster and easier. Do the plumbing and wiring in your house that much faster and easier. there are really cool things in TikTok, but there's an unsavory side of TikTok too. Can I just be real with everybody here? Okay, so this link is actually active and still, okay? Everybody see this? I want you to spend some time just checking out this resource. How many of you have TikTok loaded on the laptop you're using to view this session right now? And I'm not asking that to create some kind of thing. I'm just curious, right? Would you be willing to take an anonymous survey about the TikTok stuff that you do in the interest of digital forensics? Could we use our class as a living, breathing platform for real-time research so we know the facts about what is it TikTok is really doing on those devices? What kind of data is flowing in the background? What information of yours is actually a part of what's going on, right? Everybody understand what I'm talking about? Or are the three of you going to drop the course because it's ad drop week and you're like, I ain't giving up my TikTok. I don't care what the man says. I can do another class.
Nah, I don't have it loaded
Have it
on
on
my
my laptop.
system.
Okay. How many of you have your smartphones connected to your laptop because there's a cool feature in here that has to do with your phone? You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen it? It's built-in
I
app.
haven't used it, but I know it does exist.
Phone link. Isn't that cool? Oh, you can make phone calls with your laptop through your phone when your laptop is connected to Wi-Fi. You don't even have to have cell service. That's really cool, right? More and more people are using this. So maybe they have the TikTok on their personal phone. The point I'm trying to make is that there are boundaries. When it comes to digital forensics, you have to respect the boundaries. One of the things that you're going to learn in the next module are the legal aspects and restrictions, things you are constrained to honor with these digital forensics methods, so you don't go to jail or get in trouble, right? Effective digital forensics often requires other skill sets and disciplines, which include but are not limited to, what were we just talking about? Personnel management, tech industry partners, subcontractors, public policy, corporate compliance, law enforcement, legal counsel, and let's not forget, drumroll please, industry trends to save big bucks because everybody's going to use their own personal technology. We can get rid of our IT department. We can get rid of our help desk. If you can't get on our corporate system to do the job, well, then that's on you, right? What money will save? This is the poison. If you've ever seen a good versus evil movie or saga with multiple multiple oh my mind just went blank. Sequels. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all that great Marvel stuff, right? This right here is part of a real thing that's happening right now. And there are a couple of forces that are active in our globe using the internet that want to dominate our earth. And they basically want to upend our influence on the planet. And they're working very hard to get under the soft belly of our personal lives. So we just fall asleep and let it happen. And we have to be advocates, evangelists. We have to communicate in terms that users can understand. So when we say that effective digital forensics isn't just about the actual tools and methods, you have to be able to communicate so that you can win people over and understand you're on their side and you're using this for good instead of evil, right? That gets down to this last comment. The most important aspect of initial definition when using digital forensics is determination of the scope and purpose of the investigation. This is the last I'm going to comment on before we close the day. This right here is huge. When you start any investigation, you inspect anything as a part of your digital forensics responsibilities. If you don't understand the scope and purpose of what you're doing up front and it hasn't been established officially, you're on thin ice and you don't even know it. The moment you get under the hood and you find something stinky, you're going to want to go further, or you're opening a can of worms or a Pandora's box. Has everybody ever heard of those terms before? Opening a can of worms, a Pandora's box, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a whole lot of additional facets to effective digital forensics once you define what it is and how it works in the context of an organization. That's where it really gets challenging. And one thing I want you to have an appreciation for is how initial definition and communication is some of your strongest tools. And that's counterintuitive, right? Everybody jumps into digital forensics and they're all like, oh, let's get the collie going. And I'm like, before we start that, is it okay if I load software on your system so I can see what you're doing? What? Have those conversations in real time up front so people know, what are you doing? How are you doing? The last thing you want to do is bring something to the attention of a supervisor with your shiny new skills and you become everybody's enemy before lunchtime. You don't even know it. Half the organization has already pegged you as a spy. Something to think about. Any questions or comments before we close?
Well, not for me.